Good evening, my people. You're welcome to this very important program. We have, I think, less than 90 minutes to have this important discussion it's a rendezvous that we have with you, the Ambazonian people, every weekend. And we will always respect that appointment because during this time over the weekend, we have a retrospection of the week. We review the week as it has unfolded within Ambazonia in relation with the world. And this week we're going to focus on two things. The 11th February purported Youth Day celebration that was instituted by Amadu Ayijo and Cameroon, the La République du Cameroon government is insisting on having that celebrations in Ambazonia even until today. We're going to spend a few minutes of our time to look into why Ambazonia must never participate in that celebration, and also to find out what are some of the things that have been put in place to ensure that it is boycotted by a minimum of 100% across the entire sovereign national territory of the nation of Ambazonia. Something also that is important, critical, that we will be looking into. The Epstein files. It's creating a lot of controversies globally, and there are insinuations, there are rhetorics that seem to suggest that the Epstein file or documents is a way by Israel to control Western powers, the United States of America. We have footages that are justifying to this argument. We'll look into that. Last week, I want to remind you, we went into a very critical part of our conversation that had to do with Israel's involvement in Africa and African leadership. How Israel is training terrorist army or soldiers in Africa that are beheading people, like BSB, Bataillon Intervention Rapide, that is preferably called Bulu Intervention Rapide. We understand that it is financed and trained by Israel. And we have seen countlessly how this supposed trained military is frying babies in palm oil, beheading people, raping women in broad daylight. And sadly enough, they do it and they themselves film it on camera to show the families of the victims. The question is, if you have to behead people, why film it? ISIS does that so that they can frighten the people emotionally. You know what it means psychologically for a child to wake up one morning and see that his own father has been beheaded. And that's what Paul Biya and his army is doing. If we still have enough time, we may want to also look into some of the things that are happening with Cameroon patronizing terrorists from Nigeria into southern Cameroon. And this is what is happening. I was watching Arise News a couple of days, and they are tasking the Tinubu's government to prosecute members of the Tinubu's government that have been identified, proven to be sponsoring terrorist activities within Nigeria. Why the United States of America is partnering with the Nigerian government to fight these terrorist groups that have been identified as terrorist groups. Cameroon government and their proxies are patronizing these terrorist organizations and importing them into the southern Cameroons to fight against civilians or the people they call their own people. Our discussion is going to be really brief but very intense, and therefore I'm calling on all those who are watching us on social media platforms, on Facebook and on YouTube, to share and to invite and to tell somebody that we have something that you need to participate. And right after that, we'll be having the town hall with the president stream live with you people. Let's get started. Good evening, Mr. Mbeseha. Good evening, SOS Zama. I don't know if you want to take your seat. Good evening, Commander Elvis. You are particularly here to give some clarity on what is supposed to happen on the ground as far as the 11th February is concerned. I understand that Commander Zama is already connected, but I can see he's off his chair. We really don't have too much time today. So I would appreciate that we all please take our seats so that this program can get started right now. But straight away, we want to talk about 11 February and why Ambazonia must never participate in that criminal uh, orchestration. Now, by Stambesi, I'll begin with you. I'd like you to give to us a historical recollection of this day and what it signifies to neighboring Cameroon, why they decided to institute it, what was it for, what does it really mean to them, not only to us, and why Ambazonians must despise it and resist it at all costs. Please talk to us, Vice Ambassador. You're welcome.
Well, for having me on this topic, though, briefly, uh, when we talk about February, which is today's National Youth Day in Cameroon, we must revisit the history, and it is most important to understand where do we come from, and we should not celebrate anything as such. Are you getting me?
Yeah, I can hear you. No, it's cracking. Just try to focus yourself so that we can hear you clearly.
So, remember, as of us, that sometimes in 1961, February 11th, was something they called the plebiscite. The plebiscite demanded between getting independence by Nigeria and getting by joining a republic. That was what they call it a plebiscite. Popular vote organized by our own government, but supervised by the United Nations. The Union voted in somebody by United Nations General Assembly, and Iranian diplomat. What the exercise was meant to make opinion, our intentions clear. Our independence by getting independent by joining Nigeria or getting by joining Cameroon. That was national declarations. And so we all know that the majority vote for Southern Cameroon today voted like people to Cameroon. It's 11 February 1961. Paddy is one big important date celebrated, which today we denounce. People understand why we celebrating it first and first. Fast back history, we've talked about the 30 Cameroonian who left in 1953, created their own in 1954, and then they moved part of the British Empire. British the administered Southern Cameroon. After the area, they had their own parliament, which was installed in effectively in the 6th of October. What parliament put in place, they became the first historical day for Southern Cameroon. Until then, they were celebrating the British Empire Day because we're part of the British. But from that, a parliament, 26th of October, they celebrating the Empire Day, 26th of October, every year was called Cameroon, British Southern Cameroon Empire Day. That was the first national day. It was celebrated through to 1961. In 1961, Papa independence. The French government in Mbeseha said, look, past, we're over, we've left the history behind us. We're not longer part of the empire. So what shall be our national day? They ask themselves. In Mbeseha, national this are now, which is out in West Cameroon. So it's 62, 63. What are we shall we celebrate national day? Now that we're no longer in Nigeria, we're no longer in the British Empire. Then they decided to have 26 October celebration. Celebrate 11 February on national day. Why? The government and the politicians said that they believed that going to the union, which they hoped was going to be, to play an important role in the country as we move as a new state. That was the belief of the French government and the politicians in Mbeseha. And so they said 11th February as Southern Cameroon National Day Week. The first celebrations took on the 11th of February 1964. West National Youth. That was the National Week for West Cameroon. Exceptionally, they invited the government, Mr. Ahijo from East Cameroon. Ahijo did not show up. He sent the Prime Minister of their country, of East Cameroon, to represent him in Mbeseha with the of the family. So they were officially on the 11th of February 1960. And the French government celebrating Cameroon independent national day as by the French government. As they are, they went back to Yaoundé. 1965 again. In 1966, Ahijo told a French, let us make this national day. He didn't get explanation. Let us celebrate national Cameroon or West Cameroon. But it's Cameroon National Youth. He gave no. That's how in September and February 16, the so-called day was as a national in Cameroon, in Ambazonia. And so back to today, from where we are, we realize that what the French, what the IU was as the found, we from us that day, because as I tell this history, no in this Cameroon, like people in Cameroon, has ever been taught. I've asked of them. I worked in that way. Ask all what is national youth? I have no I told them what it meant. And so it celebrated only by British Southern Cameroon, who later on became West Cameroon, who are today called Ambazonia. Why? Because it is only British Southern Cameroonians that in the BBC. East Cameroon, yeah, they had nothing to do with it. Even visit us for that. So February was exclusive Southern Cameroon thing. Why? Because we thought that was another day. I would think it for. What does this celebrate it? Then they must admit they don't want that. They must admit one that volunteer to come and join them. Since they will not admit that they were two Cameroon, one individual, they will not teach them. We taught them. No, there was volunteer came here that would destroy the one indivisible. That would destroy the Cameroon colony. It was still the German, the Cameroon of the factory. That would it 11 February. So because we don't have time, basically the background of the story. Over to you.
That's amazing. Commander Zama, if we're listening to very closely to Barrister Mbeseha, you realize that this date was actually initiated by our head of state at the time, PM Jumbo Foncha. His rationale but it has been hijacked. Why would you think that today Ambazonians should despise a day that was initially or initiated by Ambazonian leadership or the Southern Cameroonians leadership just after independence?
Barrister Mbeseha is a resident historian, so we went through schools and we basically learned very minimal of this information. But given that we've tried this experiment for 65 years and it hasn't really worked, we don't need to be telling more people not to do this, because they should know. We should know, and our kids should be taught this information. History is a good teacher if it's remembered. We haven't been informed of this information. A lot of it has not been taught to our kids. That's where the historians in our communities have to sit down and rewrite some of these things, the real history of our country within the Confederation of Cameroon that was dissolved. Even though we've gone through all this, we have all the bad luck to have the people who have received the slaps from the gendarmes, from the soldiers, the maltreatment, the discrimination, the marginalization. It should not be even something that should be celebrated. They call it a youth day. It's a youth day without the youth. It's a youth day with all old men in the apparatus of the state, and there's nothing for the kids for the youth to celebrate. Let the old people come out and celebrate old age in Cameroon, and let the young people fight for what they can fight. Ambazonians have to fight, like we've said all along. This is just one symbol that has to be crumpled, that has to be thrown into the dustbin of history. And there's no reason to even be remembering this date. We should not even be telling our people to even remember it. It's a nightmare that should have been forgotten. It's a nightmare that should not be withdrawn into our histories. But we have to still show the right history of our cities, of our country, and to our citizens, for them to participate in the political history and deliberations of their country. They have to know that history. And I think it's important that Dr. Barrister Mbeseha and all the other people who are custodians of the history of our country should be able to put this more and more in the fora where these young people are, and to be taught in the schools for those schools that we do control in our districts. Until then, I think it's a no-brainer. We should boycott it in the sense of its intention by the barbarians from Yaoundé. I think Dr. Barrister Mbeseha is. We want you more out there, sir. Thank you.
Okay, that's very good. Commander Elvis, I'm coming now to you not to recite the significance or illegitimacy of this day that has been hijacked. It's a genuine objective has been neutralized, and it has been politicized. Right now, it is being imposed on the people of Ambazonia at a time when the youthful generation, the country is at least 70% youth, but it is governed by 98% fossil men. I call them fossil men. You have a government that doesn't really have a youth, and you have old people that don't want to leave power. So there's really even nothing. Let's say we were a part of this country. There's really nothing for a youth to celebrate. We understand also that the NSC is putting some things together. There was a misinformation a few days ago, and this is a time for us not just to retract it, but also to give the right information to the people. What do we do? Because we know the political significance. If we do not just assert our position, but we opt to peacefully and voluntarily resist every attempt by the occupiers to impose the organization and celebration of this day. So I'm asking you, Commander Elvis, at this given moment, what is the plan?
Director Paddy, thank you again for this opportunity. I would not start without thanking my able statesman, Barrister Mbeseha and Barrister Comrade Zama, who both have articulated pretty much the history of this event. It is the youths who have actually taken over this day, and that is what we are doing in Ambazonia. Um, when I read history, I learned that on the 26th of October 1962, which was the day that, you know, this John Goodfuncher had asked us to celebrate the Youths in Sports Day. Right, that was the day that counted to us. But because of the fake promises that we had, where we joined the French Cameroon, hoping that we would form a federated state, a union where we would come together, he was able to go ahead and adjust to suit with the 11th of February to make it the Youth Day. But we know that that is a sham. So we, the Ambazonian youths, are calling for a total boycott of all these sham dates that do not signify anything in the records for us. It was important, as Comrade Zama said, uh, that this day was particularly meant for young people to come together to, build their future, a future that they hoped was going to be one of unity. But that has been far from the reality. And that is why Ambazonia, after reinstating her independence and making sure that 1st October is the day that we celebrate that day, that we reclaim all our historic dates. And if need be, we adjust them accordingly. As for the 11th of February, we have annulled that date as a date that has no significance, no relevance to us, because most of our youths that were promised some 40 years ago, they went to school, got their masters, their PhDs, and they come back to become bike riders. That is not the future. That is not the youths that are meant to develop a country. So the Ambazonian National Self-Defense Council has called for a national lockdown, which starts on the 9th, which is a Monday, which is already a ghost town. Then the 10th and the 11th of February, 2026. So that Monday is already a ghost town, we know. So Tuesday, the 10th, nobody comes out. And Wednesday, the 11th, nobody comes out. And we understand that La Republique would try to go ahead and celebrate maybe prior or after to take those images to their octagonal dictator Paul Biya in Yaoundé. But our people understand that those that violate these lockdown calls, they would face justice. They would be held accountable for those violations. They would be considered enablers and traitors, and they know what happens when the Amazonian State Army lay hand on traitors and enablers. So we advise our people to get their food this weekend. They have today, Saturday, and tomorrow, Sunday, to stock up on their food. Make sure that you inform others so that they can pass on the word of mouth. Sometimes, we cannot guarantee that everybody would be informed, but thank God we do have ABC. We also have the Ambazonian National spokesperson that has come out articulating the importance of all our people staying at home during these 3 days. We understand that it is a burden for our people as well, but it is a shared burden which all of us are sharing. This day we are also, hoping that those who are not back at home, that they can help their families and loved ones back home. Be in solidarity with them. You could send them some money for them to be able to afford to get some food and stock up. Because La Republique is also planning to use intimidation tactic and coerce some of our people to come out and match for a day that has no relevance. And the funny thing is, once they come out and match, they expose themselves and then La Republique leave because they cannot control our territory. We do control our territory from every acre, and we would not allow anybody that goes against the rules and laws of Ambazonia to stay in Ambazonia. If you match to celebrate this Sham Day with La Republique, just pack your bag and follow them back to their territory. You are free to do that. That is why we are using this opportunity to advise and at the same time warn everybody that intends to go against this lockdown call. The Ambazonian State Army have been called to order, and whenever duty calls, they respect and they take action. So please do not find yourself in the trenches. Do not find yourself getting involved in this situation where you could better stay at home and be safe. So that is the message that the Ambazonian National Self-Defense Council have for the Ambazonian people, home and abroad. If you're abroad, please reach out to your people back at home and let them know that there is a total lockdown from the 9th through the 11th of February 2026. On Wednesday, we'll go back to our regular activities, but we understand that we are still at war and we shall all overcome. Over to you, Director Paddy.
So just so you can you can articulate that clearer. The 9th, that is Monday, is the regular country Sunday. Am I correct? The
Very
9th
correct, and that
as a
that is
regular
very
country
correct.
Sunday.
That is very correct.
Good. So we have the 9th as our regular country Sunday. That is going to extend into Tuesday, the 10th, and then into Wednesday, the 11th.
Very
So
correct.
activities resume Thursday the 12th. Am I correct?
Very correct, Director Paddy.
And I think some of this is not just to lock the people down. I just want to add something to what you've said. This is a very sensitive time because, like you've heard, the panel has explained, Cameroon has a political agenda. Perhaps it could have been a day worth celebrating, but the real meaning of it has been neutralized, sabotaged. The event has been hijacked. And even at a time when Ambazonia is not belonged in the country, they cannot participate. Because if Cameroon felt it was a genuine celebration, what they would need to do is to negotiate and have people gladly celebrate. You don't beat people to go out and celebrate. But because the day really doesn't have any importance, it has a political agenda. Politicians will use the evil political means to have it organized. So it's sensitive. You have two camps. I would say more than two camps right now. On one hand, you have men in arms. Call them a military, but I see them more as terrorists. From French Cameroon, the bees perform as terrorists. On the one side, they have weapons ready to beat you to submission so you can go out and celebrate. And they are loyal to Mr. Beer. On the other side, you have men in arms who have decided that they're going to sacrifice their hands, their lives, their knives, their dead guns, and now they have sophisticated weapons as well to defend the dignity of their stolen independence, their sovereignty, their national territorial integrity, their women and children from rape. These people are also on the other side with arms. And their intention, like you've heard from Commander Elvis, is to ensure that the other side will not enforce this day. So if you as a civilian, you still want to participate, it is important for you to know that you will be on arm's way. You have to understand the implications that come with you deciding to despise the fact that you let the military people go out there and do what they are supposed to do. Because these two sides have been giving commands. One side has been giving command for you to be butchered. The other side has been giving command to ensure that the day is not enforced in the southern Cameroons. You could just become the collateral damage of two armed forces fighting. So you don't want to put yourself in a compromising. Your life is not for betting. So you don't want to put yourself in a compromising position that makes it really difficult. When the organizations that be will create a buffer zone, which that is what we are hoping. The nation of Ambazonia actually wants negotiations. When they create a buffer zone and you have peacekeeping forces there, and the two parties are in a conversation or in a negotiation, then activities could go back to normal during such times, but not a celebration of what has been considered by the Southern Cameroons illegal. So I want us to move into the next phase of our conversation. But before we do that, just to enforce some of the reasons why Ambazonia is really fighting. Stasma has some reports for us. When we come back, we'll be transitioning to the next phase of this conversation. Stay tuned.
Thank you, Mr. Tarh, Paddy King. Well, in Ambazonia on the home front, we see reports of heavy gunfire that was reported in Mbeseha, a neighborhood in Kumbo, that triggered panic among residents. The incident occurred after security forces announced that they had pushed the Ambazonian State Army from the area following a military operation. Well, as of press time, it remains unclear who the soldiers were exchanging fire with, given earlier claims that Ambazonian State Army elements had been driven out of Mbeseha. But then let's take a look at what the scene was like with the gunfire in the air. Well, no official statement has been issued by the military to clarify the identity of the opposing force or the circumstances surrounding the gunfire. But beyond the exchange of fire, some residents have accused colonial soldiers deployed in the area of taking advantage of the security situation to extort money from civilians suspected of sympathizing with Ambazonian groups. Civilians they accuse sympathize with Ambazonian State Army. Locals allege that individuals are frequently stopped, threatened, or forced to make payments under the pretext of security checks or accusations of collaborations with the Ambazonian State Army. Residents reported hearing sustained gunshots for several minutes, forcing many to remain indoors. There is no immediate information on casualties or material damage. The incident has renewed concerns over security and the conduct of security operations in Kumbo, where civilians remain caught between armed confrontations and allegations of human rights abuses, despite repeated military operations aimed at restoring calm. We also see in Bamenda a story of theft, which brings concern to certain areas of unemployment. We see residents of Bamenda who have raised concerns over a growing trend in which some young men reportedly move around the city carrying multiple keys, allegedly using them to try on locks until one lock opens, thereby facilitating theft and burglary. Now, this morning, one such individual was apprehended in the back market area of the Swine Quarters neighborhood. According to eyewitnesses, the suspect was found in possession of several keys, which residents believe are used to gain unauthorized access to homes and people's stores. The suspect was subjected to jungle justice by an angry mob before some onlookers intervened, cautioning that no stolen property had been found on him at the time of arrest. They reportedly advised that the suspect be handed over to the police for proper investigation instead of mob action. The incident has reignited public debate over the rise in petty crime in Bamenda, with many residents linking the phenomenon to widespread youth unemployment and worsening economic conditions. Community members argued that the lack of job opportunities and sustainable livelihoods has left many young people vulnerable to engaging in criminal activities as a means of survival, even though that is still not justified. Authorities have repeatedly warned against mob justice, urging residents to report suspected criminal activities to the police and allow due process to take its course. Well, this is what is happening on the home front. Mr. Tarh, Paddy King, I believe you and your panelists have something to say about this trend.
If there was any better way for us to add more reasons to why there's no need for you to go out, there's war in Ambazonia, and therefore there can't be celebrations during war. I just wonder, because the next part by Mbeseha is going to speak a little bit more. I want SOS Zama to comment briefly on that before, on just some of those things that are up there, and before we move forward into the next report, please. Yes, please talk to us.
What was your question again? I didn't get your question, please. Could you
I
repeat
said,
that?
the reports that are just coming in from Star Smart there simply substantiates and gives enough reasons why we think people have to stay home. And I'd like you to make a brief commentary on that situation, that atmosphere, so we can move on, please.
Yes, I think people should be reminded that there's a war going on. I know a war does not stop people to live their lives. They should live their life without constraint that there's war going on, and they should be careful. There's a lot of killing going on in Bamenda, and sometimes these corpses are placed for viewing by the population, to terrorize the population, as has been stated several times on this media. We want to at least really inform and push our people that La Republique is on its last leg, and they will do whatever they must do to maintain themselves. And we should do what we must do for them not to be able to govern our territory. We are asking for our citizens to stay clear of any gunshots. There are some people who have this bravado that, oh, they hear the gunshots. The bullets don't find somebody. Once it leaves that gun, it goes out, and it does not. There's no mark on the person that gun is taken down. So once they hear these gunshots, they should dig down and stay low, and if they can, leave the area, because at that point we are fighting the army. The army is embedded sometimes among civilians, and sometimes they use civilians as their shield. So try to avoid all these people. La Republique is not a worthy opponent in this fight. They are using all kind of dirty tricks. They are mining streets. They are hiding behind citizens and exposing these citizens to armed fire. And very soon, when these citizens are killed, they say, "Oh, the Amba boys, the Ambazonian soldiers have killed these people." Yes, people die during war, but it should not be a careless decision you make by trying to look over the window, out of the window, if what's going on. You hear a gunshot in a direction, you're driving that direction, reverse, or take a turn back and get out of the that space, because you could be shocked. Thank you.
That's an amazing one there. I'm trying to see that I could connect the Zoom and get those who are probably in the Zoom right now to be able to start following up the show. I hope the host will be able to connect and have us connected so we can have to start streaming this meeting in the Zoom for people to watch it. While we're waiting to get it streamed in the Zoom, I want us to quickly get a report from Tabitha, and this report is actually ushering us into the next phase of the conversation, because it's scoping through or looking at what is happening in the world. So let's get to watch this, please.
On the global scene this week, the world witnessed political shakeups, accountability, and elite power play. From the Middle East in Iran, tensions are rising. Negotiations are paving the way. However, Iran continues to express readiness for war if, in any instance, the U.S. strikes. While threats of possible U.S. strikes are mounting over the region, a political shakeup took center stage over the release of Jeffrey Epstein files. As U.S. prominent political leaders and elites reel through the shakeup, a strategic move is being witnessed in the Sahel. This development is coming as opposed to U.S. earlier stance on President Trump's America First agenda. Why is the U.S. returning to the Sahel after stepping backwards? All this and more we will explore in today's global news. Good evening and welcome. I am Tabitha Arko. Let's begin. The United States is changing its strategy in the Sahel, moving to re-engage Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso after years of limited contact following a wave of military coups. This policy shift is coming in President Donald Trump's second year in office under his renewed America First agenda and marks a clear reversal from Biden's administration's withdrawal from the region. Let's take a look.
The golden age of America begins right now. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We will be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first.
Thus, Trump's first declaration of the America First agenda in Washington with NBC News. Now, under President Joe Biden, Washington reduced or suspended military cooperation after elected government were removed from power between 2020 and 2023. Niger, once one of the U.S. most important security partners in West Africa, was a key example of this pullback. At the time, the U.S. argued that continued engagement would weaken its support for democracy, but that decision had consequences. Now, what's the consequences? A vacuum opens and Russia moves in. As the U.S. and its European partners stepped back, Russia stepped forward. Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso expelled French troops, cut defense ties with Europe, and left the Economic Community of West African States regional bloc. They formed a new alliance, the Alliance of Sahel States, and turned to Moscow for security support. Let's take a look.
in Africa. We tend to make a lot of requests. We know that you are engaged in a special military operation. We understand all the challenges involved and the uncertainty about tomorrow that the whole world faces. We can relate to that. So we may not be here to ask for a lot of things, to request aid or anything like that. But the help you can give us above all is this transfer of knowledge that we seek.
Traore laying his demands, Africa's demands, to Putin right there. Russia expanded its presence through military cooperation, security advisors, and troops under its Africa Corps. It also backed joint projects, including a shared telecommunications satellite meant to improve security coordination and digital connectivity. Today, Moscow presents itself as a reliable partner for governments fighting jihadist groups that have destabilized the region for more than a decade. Still yet, violence continues despite military rule in Burkina Faso. Despite strong military control, attacks have not stopped. In Niger, militants linked to Islamic State attacked the airport in the capital, Niamey, in recent weeks. The assault was repelled, with Russia claiming joint action, but its personnel are Nigerian forces. Take a look.
We remind the sponsors of these mercenaries, notably Emmanuel Macron, Patrice Talon, Alassane Ouattara. We have listened to them bark enough. They should also prepare to hear us roar.
Also in Mali, an Al-Qaeda-linked group killed at least 15 drivers in an attack on a fuel convoy heading to Bamako, highlighting the continued strength of armed groups. U.S. diplomats privately admit that jihadist groups are not retreating. Instead, they appear to be settling in deeper across the Sahel. Now, this brings us to the big question. Why is Washington changing course at this critical time? U.S. officials now see the Sahel as a growing security risk rather than a problem that can be managed from a distance. The new U.S. approach places security cooperation ahead of democratic conditions. Officials say ignoring the region has only allowed rivals to gain ground and militant groups to expand. Washington also signaled it is open to talks with all three Sahel governments. This was underlined by the recent visit of Nick Chokar, head of the U.S. State Department's Bureau of African Affairs, to Bamako, where he met Mali's Foreign Minister, Abdoulaye Diop. The visit was the most senior U.S. engagement with Mali's military leadership in months and signaled a cautious attempt to reset relations. To the U.S., resources matter, but security comes first. But then we'll get to know about that. The three Sahel states are also important because of their natural resources. Mali and Burkina Faso are major gold producers. Niger remains a key source of uranium, while lithium deposits in Mali are drawing global attention also. Even so, analysts say the U.S. is unlikely to thread security support directly for access to minerals. Ongoing insecurity, weak institutions, and corruption risks continue to discourage major U.S. companies from investing. Power titans at home, over in Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, and Europe phase out. Inside the region, military governments are tightening control. Burkina Faso recently dissolved all political parties, formalizing restrictions already in place since the 2022 coup. Similar patterns are seen in Mali and Niger, where political opposition and public dissent are closely controlled. Meanwhile, Europe's influence continues to shrink. France has withdrawn militarily, and while EU development programs remain, analysts warn that Europe lacks a clear, unified strategy for the Sahel. The bigger question: the U.S. return raises difficult questions. Did the Biden administration's withdrawal make the region more unstable? Has Russia become the main security partner by default? Can the U.S. protect its interests without endorsing military rule? And is this shift about fighting terrorism or about not losing strategic ground and even resources? For now, Washington is back with fewer conditions, sharper calculations, and a clearer focus on competition in one of Africa's most fragile regions. Now, away from that and moving over to this development you're having right here that has to do with the political shakeups we are seeing in the world right now. The release of the Epstein files, which has been linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, has intensified global debate over power, political influence, and accountability. As attention turns to how elites across countries were able to move around Epstein without facing scrutiny for years. The document made public after years of legal pressure and transparency demands in the United States include investigative records, contact lists, and travel logs connected to Epstein's network. Epstein was arrested in 2019 on federal sex trafficking charges involving underage girls and later died in a New York jail while awaiting trial. Although Epstein's crimes are not in dispute, the files have reignited debate because they reference dozens of politicians, business leaders, and public figures from the United States, the United Kingdom, and beyond. Legal experts stress that being named in the files does not in itself prove criminal wrongdoing. Still, the political impact has been largely significant. Public interest in the files grew after billionaire Elon Musk publicly called for the Epstein files to be released on social media, following a high-profile fallout with President Donald Trump much earlier in his first year. Now, while Musk's comment added momentum, right there you can see it on the screen, time to drop the really big bomb at Donald Trump using the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Now, this is what Elon Musk said concerning the Epstein file. As a matter of fact, he was the first to state that. However, we are saying that the outcome of the release has produced an unexpected political twist. Much of the public attention so far has focused on Democratic-aligned political figures, particularly in the United States. Former President Bill Clinton has been placed at the center of renewed debate after records showed past contacts with Epstein. Let's take a look.
That's such old history. Very easy to explain, but I don't want to waste your time by explaining it. But for years, I wouldn't talk to Jeffrey Epstein. I wouldn't talk because he did something that was inappropriate. He hired help. And I said, don't ever do that again. He stole people that worked for me. I said, don't ever do that again. He did it again. And I threw him out of the place, persona non grata. I threw him out, and that was it. I'm glad I did, if you want to know the truth. And by the way, I never went to the island, and Bill Clinton went there supposedly 28 times. I never went to the island, but Larry Summers, I hear, went there. He was the head of Harvard. And many other people that are very big people. Nobody ever talks about them. I never had the privilege of going to his island. And I did turn it down, but a lot of people in Palm Beach were invited to his island. In one of my very good moments, I turned it down. I didn't want to go to his island.
President Trump's response right there when asked about his contact with Epstein, and then he used that opportunity to speak about Clinton. However, Bill Clinton has acknowledged limited interaction but has denied any knowledge of or involvement in Epstein's criminal activities. No charges have been brought against him or former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. This has raised a sensitive political question. Why does the release appear, at least so far, to cast a stronger spotlight on one political side, despite bipartisan support for disclosure? Critics argue that the issue goes beyond party politics and instead reflects how power operates across systems. Supporters of the release say transparency remains unnecessary, regardless of who is named. Why was Epstein able to maintain access to powerful political circles for years? The political influence delay accountability, especially in this case? And does the focus on one party risk turning a justice issue into a partisan battle? The controversy has also spread to the United Kingdom. Right in the United Kingdom, Prime Minister Keir Starmer is facing mounting pressure over his decision to appoint senior Labour figure Peter Mandelson as ambassador to the United States. Mbeseha has previously acknowledged social contact with Epstein, but has denied any criminal involvement. Could it be game over for Starmer? During Parliament, when asked of his prior knowledge, his hands have been spotted visibly shaking. Let's watch.
Can I reassure the House, Mr. Speaker? Let me reassure the House that the process for deciding what falls into those categories will not be a political process. It will be led by the Cabinet Secretary, supported by government legal teams.
Unrest within the Labour Party, with reports that some Labour MPs are seeking a vote of no confidence in Starmer's leadership. Right there, we are seeing that his hands are visibly shaking. Most probably, it could be game over for him. This is a real threat to his political career. Kemi Badenoch is fighting for a vote of no confidence. Would that be possible? Let's watch.
At a time when Britain needs a leader, we have a Prime Minister who makes the wrong decision again and again. For months, I have been pressing the Prime Minister about his decision to appoint Peter Mandelson as ambassador. And yesterday in Parliament, I finally forced him to admit the shocking truth. He knew. He knew that Mandelson had a continuing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He knew Mandelson had stayed in his house while Epstein was in jail for child prostitution. The Prime Minister knew all this, and yet he appointed Peter Mandelson anyway to the most prestigious job in the diplomatic service. It is now up to Labour MPs to do the right thing. I know there are many of them who are horrified by what has happened. We saw that in the House of Commons just yesterday. They might now expect the Prime Minister to take responsibility, but we know he won't. He will have to be dragged out of number 10. So, I am making them an offer. If they want the change they know the country needs, come and speak to my whips, and let's talk seriously about a vote of no confidence to force the moment.
This decision is about judgment, vetting, and political responsibility at a time of heightened public sensitivity. Meanwhile, to reclaim his leadership, which still stands on the brink, Starmer made a public apology, but is that accepted yet? Let's watch.
I am sorry. Sorry for what was done to you. Sorry that so many people with power failed you. Sorry for having believed Mandelson's lies and appointed him. And sorry that even now you're forced to watch this story unfold in public once again.
At the heart of the Epstein files debate lies a deeper democratic concern. If influential figures can move within elite circles linked to serious crimes without facing early scrutiny, how strong are institutions meant to protect the vulnerable? And if transparency comes years after the fact, does accountability still carry real weight? While many documents remain redacted to protect victims' identities, advocacy groups say partial disclosure continues to weaken public trust. For many observers, the Epstein files are no longer just historical records. They have become a global test of whether power can truly be separated from justice or whether influence still shapes who is held to account. This has been the Global News. Thank you for watching. We hand it over now to Mr. Tarh.
Thank you very much, Tabitha. Ladies and gentlemen, Ambazonians, you're welcome. Welcome back to this important broadcast. Tabitha hands it over to us with what has been hitting the airwaves, the Epstein files. It's a great concern, and I'm going to narrow it down so that we can briefly comment on it, how it involves us as a people of Ambazonia. Last week, we had a conversation with Israel's involvement, not just in government around the world, their control, but what is happening in the world in Ambazonia. Israel's trained military in Ambazonia is frying babies in palm oil, beheading people on camera like ISIS is doing, and there's a lot of question. So where we're going to focus is not to find out why Trump is involved, British Prime Minister and British government and all of this. There is an allegation, very strong allegation, coming from very reputable people that Israel somehow, either by proxy or directly and indirectly, organized the Epstein case or set this whole thing up so that they will get Western leaders involved and blackmail them to control their governments. Before we even find out if that is true, let us watch a video. This video is from someone really reputable, very intelligent. He's a sound Pan-Africanist, a scholar, a researcher. This is the son of former President Idi Amin. It's called Lumumba Amin. A lot of people not know him because mainstream will not convey their camera towards people like this that are talking the untold stories of the world. And that's why mainstream is despising us, because we are saying some things that France really doesn't want to hear. Let's listen to him and we'll be back.
So how are you watching the Epstein topic unfold around the world? Well, for me, the one thing that I noticed is the eerie silence about the fact that it is all a heinous Israeli government coup against the West. As we all know, it is an Israeli operation to take over Western governments by entrapping their leaders in depraved sexual acts, catching those sexual acts on video, and then blackmailing the leaders to do anything that Israel demands of them, or else the images would be made public. However, many who are discussing the topic fail to make the connection that today, even after Epstein's death, people are losing their freedoms and their rights in Europe and America today because of him. The increasing Israeli control of Western governments that we are all seeing today, it's Epstein's work. All the genocide denial by the governments of Europe and America, the denial of starvation and the refusal to do anything to stop the genocide. In fact, even sending even more bombs to exterminate the Palestinian people, arresting and deporting peaceful protesters in their own cities. All of this weird behavior is the direct product of Epstein's operation. Western leaders are supporting Israel under duress just so that their sex tapes are not made public. Netanyahu is probably watching to see what effect the release of the Epstein files is having on Israel's control over America and Europe. Clearly, he is not in any trouble so far because not only the names of the abusers are still redacted, but also everyone is focusing on everything else but Israel, the country that is the mastermind behind this actual Israeli coup d'etat conducted by one man on an Israeli mission. That's Jeffrey Epstein. If any other country had conducted such an operation against America, you would hear national security alarms everywhere. Diplomatic ties would be cut with that nation, and there would be war plans made and counterintelligence operations being conducted right now for the country, for America, to regain full sovereignty of its government, its institutions, and its democracy. The lukewarm concern shows how much America's national security apparatus has collapsed under Epstein's operation. To all those Americans complaining about a foreign country controlling America, that is exactly what Epstein was doing. Israel's complete takeover of America. Only one country in the world, namely Israel, uses pedophilia and cannibalism of children as a weapon to control foreign countries. American people, you are under attack by Israel. Israel wants your country, and Israel is getting away with conducting a coup against your country and installing an Israeli dictatorship against you, the American people. The only remaining simple solution at your direct disposal, and I will repeat this as many times as it takes, is the people of America kicking out of public office all these politicians whom you found bowing their heads to Israel. All these people being given free trips to Israel. That is the continuation of Israel's takeover of your country. It is the exponential increase of Israeli control over your lives. They already control your economy, your military-industrial complex, your Congress, your White House, even your conscience, through lies, fake victimhood, false flag operations, corruption with your politicians, and general deceit. The Epstein operation shows exactly which side of good or evil they're actually on. Cannibalism and sexual deviance on children cannot be the work of angels. It is the lifestyle of the beasts monsters and savages known today as Israel. Elections and nationwide public protests are the people's last line of defense to save yourselves and your country from the increasing Israeli lies, deceit, malice, fraud, traps, evil, and the rising Israeli tyranny and capture of your countries. I get nothing from anyone for saying this. I do it out of my own belief that you deserve better than a devious Israeli dictatorship cabal that is secretly siphoning all your tax dollars, your freedoms, your rights, and your jobs, and trampling over your democracy and your sovereignty in your own country. Jeffrey Epstein was already found guilty of sex trafficking for Israel's blackmail operation. Epstein's girlfriend was also already found guilty and jailed for the same child sex trafficking in the same Israeli blackmail operation. And the FBI has the Israeli blackmail sex videos where politicians are sexually abusing the children given to them by Epstein, who filmed the abuse for Israel's blackmail operation. Everybody who visited Epstein's island was filmed, including the Gulf leaders. But how come none of these international politicians, especially the American ones, are in jail for child sexual abuse? Yet the traffickers have already been found guilty of providing the victims to the politicians who abuse the children. The rotten FBI wants to blackmail these same global elites as well, using the same Epstein videos where these politicians are sexually abusing toddlers. How is anyone sure that Trump and Patel are not in a blackmail operation? And that is not happening already using the videos collected from Epstein's island? We call it Epstein Island, but he was just an intelligence asset on duty. In reality, it should.
There's something I wanted you to hear. How are we sure that Trump is not being blackmailed to make some of the decisions? Because if you look at MAGA, within the past year, has split. It's in two camps. You have those who feel that Trump has betrayed MAGA and is probably playing the bidding of Israel. These are all speculations and analysis coming from many people. And if you're doubting, prior to this, there is a Black American activist who also had something to say about the same situation. Let's hear him.
Trump Epstein files. The shocking truth revealed.
Some people ask the question, why is Donald Trump doing everything the Zionists are asking of him? The reason Donald Trump is doing everything, Art, that the Zionists are asking of him, because Donald Trump is in those Epstein files. Donald Trump is in those Epstein files. Congress has already ordered the Department of Justice, Art, to release all the Epstein files by Friday. Congress ordered the Justice Department, Donald Trump's Justice Department, to release all the files by Friday. Just today, Art, they released some more today. And guess what? Donald Trump's name is mentioned in those files allegedly hundreds of times. There is clear proof that Donald Trump was on Epstein's jet multiple times. And the question is being asked by the media, even if Donald Trump did not engage in any of the sex abuse of children and adults, was he aware of it? Because if he was aware of it, he can be charged as an accomplice to the crime. And here's the thing. Jeffrey Epstein, Art, was a Mossad agent. Jeffrey Epstein was Israeli secret intelligence. Jeffrey Epstein was Israeli secret intelligence. And I believe that the Mossad, the Israeli Secret Service, used Jeffrey Epstein to blackmail all of the top politicians, all of the top businessmen, and all of the top politicians, businessmen, and entertainers in America in order to coerce them, Art, to do whatever the Zionists want them to do. And if you don't, we will expose your participation in the Epstein ring. Art, Donald Trump can't get out of this if he wanted to. Whatever the Zionists tell him to do, he will do it.
Wow. So you heard that. This is not King speaking. These are reputable. That's a an African American doctor Hussein there. It's a global speaker that is reputable and respected. Lots of things are happening. I'm calling all those who are watching us on their social media, and you're still at your homes, still in the WhatsApp group. You have not joined the Zoom meeting. It's 9 p.m. Ambazonia time. That's the time that was scheduled for this town hall with the president. You want to start joining right away, because these men want to do some analysis and it will take us into it. So start joining. My question I want to ask those who are so let me take it with you, Commander Zama. When you look at the situation now and the control system, last week we went deep into this conversation, very deep into it. We had so much. Commander Zama, I don't know if you're still connected. You seem paused there.
I'm frozen.
Last week when you are just frozen. Okay. Yes. You may want to log in, and you may want to log out and log in again, and that will help you not to be frozen. I'm sure your internet is troubling. But by Mbeseha, we went into the discussion last week examining Israel's control of systems in the world and its impact in the war in Ambazonia. After looking at these analyses from Tabitha, these excerpts of the videos we've just watched, please talk to us.
I think we should be very careful we talk or how we analyze those things. Epstein was an American. He was not a politician. He was just a rich man with a lot of influence. That's why if Epstein is so much in America, they influence a lot of people. They are not talking about Donald Trump alone. They are talking about the Clintons, the powerfuls. And it extends so far to the British. You find that the British Prime Minister apologizing. So who was Epstein? Had he anything to do, for example, Ambazonia? I don't think he had. But we don't know. I think he has some Jewish roots. Unless we don't understand. It is true that the Jews have a lot of influence over American politicians. They have a lot of influence. That's why the U.S. Congress appropriates money directly to Israel. That budget is passed by American politicians and signed by American presidents. And so the Jewish influence in America is extensive and powerful. Might be Epstein was just one of those people, a powerful Israeli-based with a background, to lobby for Israel. That is highly possible, and I'm sure possible. So without influence, in America, politics speaks, power speaks. Having positioned himself in that position, what was he doing? He was calling people to party, big people. And when he came to party, probably they gave you some young girls to sleep with them. Probably prostitutes. What would let any normal human being? But those are done by politicians pretentiously hiding. They never knew they would come to light. And so they use them. For example, if it was an Israeli lobby, you would invite the president there and say, well, we need this, we need these missiles, we need this. You were there for 2 days in his empire, probably sleeping with women and drinking the best whiskeys in the world. Or the congressman, or the congresswoman, whoever it was. So that is huge influence over here. In America, it is massive, it is extensive, it is very, very powerful. Does that apply same to us? No. When the Israelites come to Cameroon to train their bees, they are not doing so for nothing. You pay them the fee, and they train the bee the way you want. Even they eliminate all your people, they have the equipment, they have the know-how to train them. That's all. I don't think if you go to Yaoundé, Douala, anywhere in Cameroon, you are going to find an Israeli company.
By Mbeseha, please. Maybe I did not communicate it well. I'm not directly linking Epstein and Israel's involvement with Ambazonia. I was just relating the story, what happened last week. We spent some time last week to see how Israel controls systems in the world. And we've seen how Israel trained. Maybe you want to sit well so that sit straight in the middle of your camera so that they can see you by Mbeseha. That's good. We've seen how Israel trained army of Mr. Bia is beheading, frying babies on palm oil, raping women, and acting like a terrorist syndicate. So there's some concern from allegations by those who believe that Israel's involvement with Epstein was to make sure that leadership is on hook. And maybe there's some justification, because how would you think that this man, though he was a billionaire, but he was so funded that he was so powerful that he had every businessman. I think the only leader so far that is not linked with Epstein is the Obamas, as we speak right now. You had every leader entangled, and there are those who are saying, not just speculatively, even before the Epstein files were released, when there was a quarrel between Trump and Elon, you had Candace always said a couple of times that one of the reasons the Israeli government is controlling the Trump administration right now is probably because of involvement with Epstein, and things are just coming together. And that's why I want to link the mic to you, SOS Zama, looking at this situation right now of how hegemonies in the world will do everything, even coming to raping babies, just so they can control. And this is a terrible strategy. Please, SOS Zama, talk to us.
The Epstein file has been out there for a long time, and there are many people who have been corrupted. The question is, the legal system in this country is a two-tier legal system where the common man gets a different kind of justice, and the well-connected have little or no justice against them. If Epstein was a civilian, he was not a government officer, and any person who carried on a visit to Epstein was a private visit. I don't see any reason why those tips or any information regarding this, the violation of these kids' rights, the young ladies and children's rights, if their name should be redacted from that. They should open it and drop it on the internet like all the Panama Papers came in. We knew who was stealing where and who was placing money where in the world. That information should be left to the reader to be able to make a judgment out of what is available. For the people's names to be redacted who are involved is not a show of confidence of the legal system. There may be people who might have been present there for legal businesses, even though Jeffrey Epstein was a crook and a pedophile. But at the end of the day, saying Epstein was Israeli more, well, we've had this before in history. If it's a probe or it's something. We have the Dreyfus's case in the 1900s involving the Panama Canal, and even before that, the Jews involved in Holland. Then at that time they were calling them Huguenots. They've always been involved in stuff like that, or have been suspected of things like that in statecraft. But given that the Mossad is in every place and they are trying to be in every place as they want, it's all insiders who led them into this. And I will not doubt if Jeffrey Epstein might have been used, knowingly or unknowingly, for the Israeli government. Epstein, I think he's a dual citizen, American and Israeli. Something like that was I read somewhere. I don't know how truthful that is, but most Israeli Jews American citizens too. Some of them, most of them, in the U.S. So he might have. Nobody knows, but he might have. I think the only way of knowing is to release all those information on the internet, or to in portions that people have to be read. And even if the president is involved, he's involved. Let him say, push everything that I am involved on that paper out. if he thinks he's a clean person and he's an honest person, which I want to believe him until proven wrong. Let him show that. And I think the more resistance he gets from opening all the books regarding the Jeffrey Epstein files, the more we're gonna doubt what he's saying in front of the public. And well, it's not the first time President Trump has been accused of dealing with other countries. His wife, in a deposition, says he's been dealing with foreign countries and giving foreign secrets to foreign countries without any person in the house or in the room to debrief him. So there are a lot of things that could happen, yes, but until we get the best information, we cannot really say he was a mole or he was an agent of Israel. But Israel is trying to make everything, because we can see it in most of their spies in their security apparatus are opening businesses here in the U.S., and those businesses are basically in the framework or groundwork or backbone of most information systems in the country. And of course, they must be skimming a lot of information from here to use against our people. It's just spycraft, and every country does it. The Americans are doing it the same too, everywhere in the world. They do that against Cameroonians. The Cameroonians statesmen come abroad and they go sleep in hotels and go sign deals without even reading them. So it's something that's being used all the time. I don't think there's anything new with that, but the breadth of it is mind-boggling.
So there's some iota of truth that this is a scheme, because if you want to ask yourself a question, why was this every sexual act with babies, women caught on camera, pictures, the documentation? I was asking, is Mr. Epstein, was he doing a reality TV show? Because he himself did proper documentation, which may want to agree with those who believe that he was an agent. You understand what I'm trying to say, SOS Zama? He did a documentation of it, not just in writing, not just in pictures, but in videos. As you've rightly said, they should be published, because he actually invited these people with an agenda. I don't think he was trying to keep a family album. You cannot be keeping a family album of having reputable people in society actually sleeping with babies. I don't think so.
Paddy, all these people are all pedophiles. They are in a cult of their own. Those pictures could not have meant anything to them at the time. They were just a cult of men who were out there to go and have all these orgies with young women. Like most American white folks, they go to Thailand. You see them in hotels in Thailand, and they are with all these 17, 16, 15, 17-year-old kids. At least in Thailand, it's legal, even though morally is reprehensible. But that's what they've been doing. They do the same thing in Puerto Rico. They do the same thing in Dominican Republic. So it's not something, it's just something that drives them, that pulls them in. And Epstein knew how to pull these powerful men in.
Some sort of a fetish desire that has now been used against them.
Well, sure, they use the same things in Cameroon. They use them they believe that having sex with minors, it gives them some powers over them, because there's no reason. One of the pictures we saw, there was, I think Mendelssohn was crouching over a young woman, and I don't know, I think that girl was about 15 or 16. But those things they do. And there are men who have whose character are so flawed that those things does not mean anything to them. It's just going to have fun. Like you see some of the letters that they write to each other, and some of the letters that President Trump sent to Epstein. He's refusing that he didn't send that letter. It wasn't signed by him, but the same letter has been shown inside the collection of Jeffrey Epstein. So all these things has to be seen as it falls out. We will see the fallout of this. This is just the beginning, and more things will be coming out if the Americans have the balls to do that. The Justice Department is not performing like most Justice Departments have done in my 40 years in this country. We'll just see what happens at the end of the day.
That's amazing. Commander Elvis, please. I like us to start concluding with your comment. And I'm still encouraging those who are watching this program and they're connected from different
Yeah.
parts of the world, either from your homes. There's a Zoom that has been shared in almost every platform. We have it in the comment section of this program on social media. You can click in that Zoom meeting to join the town hall. I think this is the first of its kind, the year 2026 with the president. Commander Evans, please, I'd like to hear from you.
Yes, Director Paddy, thank you for that opportunity. I would have loved for us to look at the moral lessons for Ambazonia. Matter of fact, I really enjoyed Tabitha's report, and I would have wished that we stayed focused on the first part that talks pretty much about you know, the sub-Sahara region and how is of strategic importance to us. The Epstein files, of course, is a distraction for us Ambazonians, but we can pick a moral lesson out of it. And that is how leadership can be coerced to act in ways that they can be used to sabotage whatever plans that leadership has for their country. Trump came to office on the promise of American first. So he would do whatever it takes that is in Americans' best interest. Of course, the Epstein files, as we have learned, goes back to what we know Putin to be as an ex-KGB agent, which means they are spies who work basically for their country. And what they do is they gather intelligence on other countries or other important personalities that they can use to blackmail them to get whatever benefits they would get to benefit their country. And looking at that pretext, I think the moral lesson here is as a leader, you need to hold yourself to a very high esteem. You need to be mindful of the people you associate yourself with. You need to be mindful of these blackmails that happen. They do happen to us as well. So they might just be in a different league, but we could be in a different league of our own, maybe in the lower league per se. We have seen how La République du Cameroon has held some of our people hostage. They are not able to speak for the struggle any longer because their souls have literally been bought and they can't stand straight and talk on behalf of Ambazonia. That is exactly what we just see with the Epstein files. Now, coming to the reason why I think that our importance looking as to why Trump has strategically shifted to the Sahel region, pretty much because they see an opportunity there, and you could see how President Trump tried to create Trump's board of peace, right? Pretty much trying to sideline the United Nations, and him now positioning himself with maybe other leaders and coming into Africa to be at the forefront. Imagine him requesting other countries to pay $1 billion to be a permanent member in this creation. Right. So what does that imply for us, for Ambazonia, right? And what does that imply for us as African, as a collective? Because the bottom line is, which I really like, the fact that the Epstein file, I'm still to see any person of dark color that's implicated in this. So I want to assume for now that that is just, let me just say that is something that is out of our race, right? We as Black people, we are not known for such awkward kind of behavior. We're not known as pedophiles. We are more moral upright when it comes to actions like this. But the essence that now bringing this to our African context, we need to understand that these people are coming to Africa for their own personal interest. And how do we position ourselves that we are not also taken hostage? Because them coming to our country, they could come and hold us hostage, and we would not be able to develop Africa as a continent, which Ambazonian lies in that context. So I think for me, the moral lesson there is for all of us leaders, be it at what whatever department or whatever area that you are working at, to hold yourself as a moral compass. Whatever thing you do, you look at it from the perspective of how important would God, how God would judge you. We're godly people. We're people that believe in the supernatural power of God. So when you hold yourself accountable to those standards, I don't see anything that would compel you to go down that lane of doing all these atrocities that are against humanity. So for that, I cannot judge them. God would ultimately put judgment on them, but I would not condone with anybody or any leader that practices such actions. It is good that the world now is seeing the real colors of some of these individuals, and it saddens a lot of us that maybe could have been hoping that we could get, some benefits out of these people, but knowing how morally decayed they are, I don't see any benefit that has to provide to us Ambazonians. So that is not even a topic that I would like to entertain myself talking about, but rather looking at the broader context of how us as Africans, how we would be able to survive now. These draconians that are coming with the presence of Ibrahim Traore, who has been doing a great job of lifting up Africa, they are trying to be at the
Commander
forefront.
Elvis, Commander Elvis, very quickly, thank you for your contribution. Very quickly, let me just come in there to bring in some clarity. I really appreciate your analysis. If you actually listen to Barrister Mbeseha and Commander Zama very well, you understand the significance of this conversation. And I'd like for those who are just joining about 15 minutes ago to understand that we spent the past 1 hour of this show actually educating Ambazonians of why they should never participate in 11 February and why the lockdown. So if you're coming into program, sometimes you ask questions before you make preposterior statements, and so that you understand the context of the conversation. What is the significance of this discussion? To understand how we cannot box Ambazonia because we're fighting a war, and you just talk about Ambazonian war. For people to listen to your story is when you are also listening and talking about their own stories. That's just the simple truth in the media. That's media. We didn't create media, so we cannot try to impose on media, or we are following a direction that doesn't work. How many people will come and just listen to you talk about an Ambazonian lockdown for 2 hours? Even Ambazonians themselves will get bored listening to that. And Ambazonians need education by learning to understand how systems of the world are being controlled, how systems of the world function, how people control people. So this is not a discussion that is limited to Americans or Western government. You heard Lumumba and Mende is a reputable Pan-Africanist that is actually explaining to the world some things that mainstream will not tell you about what is happening. So when you have a country control America, if American government cannot function independently, that by default, like I said, affects even Africa. If we are assuming as Ambazonians that the United States policy in Washington does not impact the current war, then that is being very narrow. Because we know that what happens in Washington can directly or indirectly affect the progress with our advocacy, either for recognition or integration or for negotiations with La République du Cameroon. So talking and examining this issue so that we can understand the state of the current war order is an important and an intellectual discussion that should involve us all. We are not a limited people. We have been highly emancipated at this time. We are very educated people, and we are not afraid to get ourselves involved with intellectual debates that are impacting the world as a whole. Ambazonia is not a nation outside of this world. It's not an outline outside the earth. Global politics and global movements directly involve the people of Ambazonia, and Ambazonians must be open to serious discussions like this. I wanted to make this clarification so that our broadcast of today is not misunderstood or misconstrued. By Mbeseha, I want to come to you as we try to round up this phase. I can see that a lot of people are joining the Zoom link already. I'm calling on all of those who are in the Zoom meeting to invite many more people. That the meeting should have started about 25 minutes ago. So we're just holding on to ensure that people are connected. But Mbeseha, I want you, based on all of these analysis and the importance of what we discussed earlier on, starting with the historicity of the historical background knowledge of the 11th February and why Ambazonians should have to boycott a hijacked day, and into how the Israeli government chooses to control the world with systems that are not properly understood by many. And you have a lot of people, politicians, trying to disassociate themselves from situations like that. We heard the US activists there saying that if you were a part of it and were aware of what he was doing, can be condemned by law for even associating with him. So, by Mbeseha, let me hand the mic to you.
Well, of time, let me just say this. Let us start with the 11th February, which I've explained. I want us to understand, tomorrow there will be a segment on that. Cameroon history, Ambazonian history by Commando. I'll be there and I will give more details and more explanation as to what happened. So those who are interested in the February 11th thing can tune tomorrow. It's 5, 6 o'clock Ambazonian time. But coming back to Epstein, summarily, Epstein, he had a lot of influence because he had money. But put in the common language that we understand, he was a lobbyist for Israel. What do we learn out of that? Can we Ambazonians constitute a lobby? Anyway we are to influence the system. How did he influence the system? He bribed them. He gave them, he trapped them into things they did not do and released those things that they are taking, their slave young guys, to be ashamed. So by that means, he was perhaps able to achieve what nobody could achieve for Israel. He did all that. Then we can look fast again to what the Trump administration is doing in the Sahel. Last week, I said, Africa will remain useless until it can constitute a front. We're no longer talking about Burkina Faso, Mali, or Niger. We're talking of a front, a Sahel front, which compares America. They said they don't want to see these people in their country. America now sends its own diplomats to go and beg them to change the tune. Is it because they like the Sahel? No, they don't like anything. They don't like those individuals that they can all die. That has nothing to do with America. They like their resources. That Sahel region has the precious resources that America needs, that the West as a bloc needs. They have not just gold, they have uranium, on which their superpower thing is based. Produce nuclear weapons with refined uranium, enriched uranium. And so they are not important. They are important, that's why I wanted them. If we were Burkina Faso alone, they would do everything to eliminate that guy. If we were Niger alone, they would do everything to kill that young man, or Mali. But now they are faced with a region that has understood their own value. They cannot pose a challenge. People are killing people in Mali, call it Boko Haram. It is not America, it is not the British who will come and stop Boko Haram. Those countries that live there, including Nigeria, that are affected. Boko Haram will not go away until these people are determined to take it away. Take responsibility, because the people who are Boko Haram, they are Nigerians. They are Burkina based. They are the same people. And so, I'm just coming. So, that is how it is. Constitute ourselves into power. We'll get what we want. As Ambazonians, let us constitute ourselves into good lobbies. That's all I can say about that.
Yeah, thank you very much for that analysis, by Mbeseha. I think we have come to a logical conclusion of this phase of the program. I want to thank all of you who came, and to thank you, Commander Elvis, SOS Zama, and everyone who is watching us. I like to appreciate you all for being a part of this important broadcast. One thing is certain: we are Amazonians. We are not giving up any day soon. We are resolved to secure our restored independence. And one of the ways is through civil disobedience, staying home during 11 February. You heard from ANSC representation that was here. Monday is a usual country Sunday, so you're accustomed to that, but it extends to Tuesday into Wednesday. And like I explained during this show, it is not just somebody trying to lock you down. It's somebody concerned about your well-being, because this is what happens. I'm going to explain this again. When you're out there, you are placing yourself in a great danger. There are two forces loyal to two different governments, whether you agree or not. One is loyal to the government or loyal to the people of the Southern Cameroons that have been kicked out of their own country by force. And one is loyal to the dictatorial regime of Biya. You now understand that an Israel-trained bee, the Israel-trained bee function exactly like ISIS. They are non-tolerant to the civilians. They do not only rape civilians, they behead them and film it on camera, the exact same manner that ISIS behaves. The Israel-trained bee beheads Ambazonians. We've seen that countlessly, and show it on camera. They fry babies in palm oil. So if you're going out there on 11th of February because you have a CPDM loyalist uncle or auntie that is advising you because of their political interest in Yaoundé, you are positioning yourself as a military target, and you might just be the collateral damage of an evil onslaught that is in the Southern Cameroons. You don't want to put yourself in that position. So there is a lockdown that starts from Monday and extends into Wednesday. And on Thursday, you can resume your regular activity. It is not normalcy. Normalcy cannot return. Even prior to 2016 or 17, what was happening in Ambazonia was not normal. So there's a reset so that Ambazonians can get a real normal life. When our forebears came from Enugu, they came with a vision, with institutions that would have made the nation of the Southern Cameroons today prosperous. But that system was botched, was ambushed by criminal actors funded by France and British conspiracy. And this is where we are today, fighting a war to redeem ourselves from this evil. An unfortunate war that has been imposed on us. So until next Saturday, when we will have more time to look at the stories that are happening in Ambazonia every week with Ambazonia This Week, I would just say let's meet in the Zoom meeting and have the opportunity to probably ask our questions. I'm sure there are a lot of things that you as Ambazonia have was concerned. So we'll directly be transitioning into the next phase of this program. I guess it will be streamed live. But for you to participate and to ask questions, you may want to join the Zoom meeting. Have a good night.